let's go on to the defensive backs. So interesting few names last week that we threw out there. We talked about Kareem Jackson, especially with Kane Stearns being on the IR. He was on bye, so we'll see how he does this next week. CJ Gardner-Johnson, who was having off to a really good start on the tackle day, then just didn't really do much else after that. But he did grab an interception, which keeps his streak alive, leads the league in interceptions. So saved your fantasy day with that. I mentioned Marcus Epps, who only got 5 tackles, kind of an underwhelming day. I'll call that a miss for me. And I mentioned Juju Hughes just if Deshaun Elliott missed. Deshaun Elliott played, so Juju Hughes did not. But that's not the only Lions player we're going to mention in this segment. I'll get to that in a second. The big news of yesterday, or a few big news, but Xavier McKinney put out that statement on Twitter, and it was weirder to read by the sentence. He will be missing extended time with I believe he broke his hand in an ATV accident during the Giants' bye week. This is just so dumb on so many levels. And Xavier McKinney's been underwhelming for IDP all year. He's been dropping deeper. Julian Love, my guy, has been filling in the box and jumping in a little bit more than other people were expecting. So it's not the biggest change, but we've seen Dane Belton, who is the pickup here, fill in admirably at times for Xavier McKinney. He has 5 tackles. He has 5 tackles in 2 of the 3 games where he did fill in for McKinney at that 70% snap mark. So again, kind of low upside type of play unless he gets that turnover, unless he gets that interception. And Dane Belton isn't a special guy to be making super playmaking opportunities, but he will get the snaps. He will get a decent tackle floor of around that 5 mark if you don't want to be burnt and you're in a deeper format maybe. But that's the name. I don't want to call it dumb, but it is dumb. It is dumb, right, Brandon?
Oh, it is. I just can't believe there's not more clauses in contracts about this kind of stuff. After Roethlisberger had the motorcycle accident, and a couple other players, and with Myles Garrett driving stupid crazy, in his car, just so much risk, and I don't get it, but I guess if you're these athletes in prime shape, you want to do all these risky things, but it's just crazy to me.
Yeah, and that was the first thing I thought of was about the contract, and I did look it up, and people were also wondering, so I got the answer. It is against the contract, believe it or not. So the Giants technically, and this is important to follow, I guess, the Giants could technically void Xavier McKinney's guaranteed money. They could avoid him and then, in theory, release him right now. Now, he's a team captain for the team and a great player for them, so that's just not going to happen, which is why we haven't heard of it. But it is in the contract, because I was wondering the same thing. And to mention here with Anthony Mejia about Martin Emerson, yes, you definitely want to be checking him out. He's been racking up those tackles. We mentioned him on the show, I think 3 weeks ago, maybe, when he was coming off the 6-tackle game against the Patriots. He followed it up with a 4 and a sack, and then this past week, obviously, he had 12. He's been very good for them because they've also been very targeted because, again, this Browns secondary has struggled. You ride it out until Denzel Ward comes back, and even then he might be still a relevant name. Cornerbacks always have that bit of volatility. Just going to mention that while we're on the defensive back segment of this. So let's number 2, I will throw out this name that I alluded to before with this Detroit system. Kirby Joseph, who was Aaron Rodgers' favorite target this past week, had 2 interceptions, the most he's had in his career, because most people don't have that. He has 5 tackles in each of the last 3 games or more. And he's forcing fumbles. He's deflecting passes. He's been excellent opposite of Deshaun Elliott. And his rise as this rookie 5th-round pick has really, I think it's coincided with what you mentioned before, Brandon, about this defense coming along of late. I think Kirby Joseph and his coverage skills have been a huge part of that. So I really expect him to continue as this year goes on. Deshaun Elliott, obviously, being the more tackle-heavy, the more fantasy-friendly of the 2 Detroit safeties, but Kirby's making plays. He's someone that is still that I want to be, stashing and playing in certain matchups where I do think he could get an interception. And the downright thing is that he's playing well. So I do think his snaps are going to maintain. We'll throw on 2 other names here, one of which, Brandon Jones' replacement. We alluded to it last week, I think, and if we didn't, I apologize. We thought it might be Eric Rowe, and it turned out it was Eric Rowe. He got 77% snaps. They've been kind of rotating the role, so not something that I'm 100% confident will repeat, but I do expect him to get as long as, until something changes otherwise, until I get an indication that it would. So Brandon Jones is on the IR. This is Miami safety Eric Rowe filling in. He had 7 tackles and 77% of snaps this past week. And it helps that Miami's allowing the 10th longest time possession to their opponents when they're, it's just more defensive plays that they are allowed to have. And, it's been more true in the last 3 games as well. So Eric Rowe is somebody that you can pick up, stream, work it out, because he has a good role. And hey, if we're not chasing roles, then we're not really playing IDP fantasy, right, Brandon?
Definitely. And, just add on Eric Rowe. He's had some good games in the past. I've been able to play him spot duty the last couple of years. So definitely, I think it's always good someone that has had success in the past. And then when they're thrust in a role, at least we've seen them do it before.
Yeah, it always adds with that, right? It kind of reaffirms what you're seeing in front of you. And I also mentioned last week, Andrew Adams, who got 7 tackles on 97 snaps, somebody that, which is ridiculous how often the Titans defense was on the field this past on Sunday night. So that got done for you if you picked him up and played him in lieu of Amani Hooker's injury. Not something I'm chasing because his tackles have been very up and down in the starts that he has made, and they play 97 snaps. That's something that's not going to happen again. That's ridiculously high. And the other name we threw out there was Israel Mukamu. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. That is the Dallas safety. I'm throwing it out there with they had their bye, obviously, so the injury status of a lot of their players is kind of unknown right now. But Malik Hooker was dealing with injury. Donovan Wilson was dealing with injuries as well, and Jaron Kearse was dealing with injuries. All 3 of their safeties were dealing with injuries. So Israel Mukamu could be thrown into a promising role. It's something you might want to be picking up later in the week if you do need a replacement.